Welcome back. So in this video, I have already started to set up um, some things in Photoshop. So I just used the same document settings and started to import some image assets. So I went to Flickr and searched for this image of a fish. I made sure it's Creative Commons, so I'm not using someone else's work. And this is the original image here. And I also have some textures that I brought into the document, and I have a little bubble layer, and then I also created some seaweed just using the brush tool and mixer brush in Photoshop. So I'm going to hide these for now, and we're just going to focus strictly on this fish. I applied a layer mask to the fish already to get rid of that kind of ugly blue background. And the next step here is to start working on this fish. So my goal for the animation is to have this fish swimming across the screen through some seaweed. So that's the goal, that's the idea behind this, and that's where we're headed. So when we're designing for animation, we need to pay attention to all of the little parts. So if I want this fish to be swimming, I also will want this background to be moving a little bit so that it looks like the fish is swimming. And right now, this background is larger than the screen. This is great because After Effects will pick up the full layer size rather than just the size of the screen. So it's not necessarily going to crop this layer where the boundaries are here. So you can make your layers as large as you'd like, and After Effects will still read the parts of the layers that are outside of this initial boundary. For mine, I want the water to be moving so that it looks like the fish is moving, and I'll probably just have all of the background elements moving and leave the fish, but I also will want the fish to be swimming, so I'll need it to have fins that work, I'll need an eye that works, I'll need these little guys, these little gills to be moving a little bit. I might want its mouth to move. I'll want the seaweed to sway back and forth a little bit, and then I want these bubbles to start coming up from the fish. So the first thing we are going to do here is start preparing this fish. And I've already got the layer mask on it, like I said, but there are some things that I need to do with the fish. Right now, this layer is a smart object, so I've got this layer mask on here, and I'm going to go ahead and rasterize the layer, and that will just make it so it's a little bit smaller file size. And I still have the layer mask applied, but right now I'm going to do some retouching on this fish because there are some parts of it that I'm not super thrilled about. There's some little speckles and there's some weird things going on here. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and grab my spot healing brush. I'll start getting rid of a few of these things. I'm going to make this so that it has a soft edge, and I'll just start going through here and fixing up some of the blemishes with the spot healing brush. Alright, now that I've cleaned up a little bit of these spots, what I'm going to do is go through and with the mixer brush, I'm just going to soften up the fish a little bit because he's kind of grainy, and I want it to match the other elements that I've created. So I'm just going to do that really quickly here and soften it up. I'm going to kind of give it a more painterly effect. All right, now I've gone through with a mixer brush and kind of cleaned things up a little bit. And now what I'll want to do is make sure my layer mask is ready to go. So with still image design, it's really important that you don't have any floating remnants left after you've cut out your object, but it's especially important in animation because when your object's moving, you'll see that there are these little floaties, like there's one right here. So the way that we'll get rid of those is to hold down Option and click right on that layer mask thumbnail. So now I can go in and see all of these kind of strange things that are going on with my mask here. So I'll just start cleaning up some of these little leftover remnants. So there's these white spaces. Those are parts of the image that are still showing through. And when you do this, you can kind of get a good sense of what's going on in your image and what your lines look like. With these, it's not totally perfect, but for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm not going to spend too much time making sure my layer mask is perfect. And now I'll just re-click on that and we'll get back to where we were. What you can also do with your layer mask is refine the mask edge. So I could feather it out a little bit, smooth it out, but for right now I'm just going to kind of leave it how it was because it doesn't matter all that much with this demonstration. So now I've got my fish and my background, and what we'll do next is start kind of dissecting the different parts and pieces of the fish. So what I'll want to do is start deciding what I want to move and what I don't want to move. So I know that I do want this eye, that pupil, to be moving around. So what I'll want to do is create a selection around the eye there, and I will right click on the eye layer here and say new layer via copy. So what that's going to do here is create an eye on top of this. So this layer, layer 5 here, if I hold down Option and click on that eyeball, I can see that this is layer 5. So I'll click on my layer here after I have this selected, go up to Edit, Fill, or Shift F5, and I'm going to make sure my fill is set to Content Aware. And I'll just say OK. And so right now, this is what it's generating based on the image. So that's not exactly what we want, so I'm going to try another option here and do the clone stamp. And I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller, and I will start sampling the color from this area and filling it in. Perfect. Now this base layer has no pupil, and this layer here does have the pupil. So now in your animation program, you can start moving the eye around. What I'll do here is just soften up that edge, and I'll just erase it with the eraser tool here. Take that down, take the hardness down, just soften up the edge a little bit. So then when it's in the eye, I'll be able to move it closer to that edge without getting the remnants. So what we'll do now is just kind of do the same thing for all of the different layers that we want. So we'll want this fin to be separate because we'll want to be flapping this little fin here. So I'll just go and grab my selection tool. Do a new layer via copy, go back down to this layer, and what I can do now is just start filling this in, and I'll try the content aware fill again because that should get rid of this. So I'll go up to Edit, Fill, Content Aware, this is what starts to happen, and I kind of like that it started filling the fin in with some other gills. And so now what I can do is just kind of start coming in here and fixing up these areas. And I think I'll just start using this spot healing brush in this area and have Photoshop do most of the work. And then what I can do, so when I went through with the mixer brush and started fixing this to begin with, now I can just go back in with the mixer brush. I'll make sure that I have the right settings here. So this is that brush that I was using, and I had it at about 20 pixels. So now I can just start coming in here and softening this up a little bit. And with a lot of these, it is important to really make sure what's behind the area is filled in. But with a lot of them, like with this one, the fin will probably be over this area most of the time. So it doesn't necessarily matter, but say if we start moving it and rotating it, you will be able to see the things behind it. So you want to make sure you do a good job with your retouching here. So now I'll hide this, and what I'll do is just apply a layer mask to this layer, go in with the brush tool, and fix these edges up a little bit. I messed up a little bit, so I'll just push X on the keyboard, swap back to my white, and then I'll push it X again, swap back to my black, fix this up a little bit. All right, perfect. Now I'll turn this layer back on, and here is what this looks like. And right now, since I did that, I had that fin underneath. When this is moving, you'll be able to tell that there's a realistic belly here under the fin. So then what you'd want to do is just go through for every element that you need. So I'd do the same thing for the tail, create a new layer for the tail, and then cut off the tail in that original. So that way each of these individual parts could move independently. If you wanted a group of things to move all together, you could put things in a group. And so if I grouped all 4 of these pieces of seaweed together, so in After Effects, these will all move as one layer if you have them grouped rather than independently. So it's really important if you are grouping things, you need to make sure that you want all of those objects to move all together. But say I put this fish in a group, nothing would be able to move because it would just bring in this one layer rather than these independent layers. The next thing you need to be really aware of when saving for animation is that you need to have your Photoshop document organized perfectly. So what we'll do here is I'm going to ungroup those layers because I want them to move all together, and everything needs to have its own individual name. So this here, I'm going to name these Seaweed 1, Seaweed 2, Seaweed 3, Seaweed 4. So this one here, just double click on that. Seaweed 1, Seaweed 2, Seaweed 3, and Seaweed 4. If you did have all of these named just seaweed, that would be fine because After Effects could understand that, but you would start confusing yourself because you wouldn't be quite sure which one was which. So when I give these each independent names, that's just saving me time in the future. Now this layer 2, that needs to be called Bubble, or layer 4. I don't think there's anything in this layer, so I'm going to erase that. Layer 5, this is the eyeball. Layer 6 is the fin. I'm going to call this main fin because there are other fins here and I might get confused. And then this I'm going to call main body. This I'm going to call water texture, blue shape. And then with After Effects, before you start bringing things into After Effects, you need to make sure that none of your layers are locked. So if you have layers locked, you need to unlock them. And you can work, if it's easier for you, you can work with your locked layers, but you do need to make sure that they're unlocked before you save your final product here. We'll want the fish to move through the seaweed like that. So I want this seaweed behind the main body of the fish. I want this one to be in front of it. I'd like that seaweed 2 to be behind, and then this one I like to have in front. And then, so now when you start moving through this space, you can see how the fish will be animating through like that. Another thing that is important to keep in mind with working in After Effects is that if you have a ton of layers that don't need to necessarily be independent from one another, it's a great idea to rasterize or merge all of those layers together in a separate Photoshop document and then bring it into After Effects so that you're not working with such a hefty file size in After Effects. So like I could merge these two layers together if I wanted to just start freeing up some space. It's also important before you finish saving that you add on more layers, because if you need to go back to your Photoshop document, you need to have some empty layers that you can work in, and you'd probably just name these placeholder. So that way if I needed to add more layers, I could do that and After Effects could easily pick it up without having to re-import the whole Photoshop document. So you'll always want to add some placeholder layers there. The great thing about working with Photoshop and After Effects is that After Effects recognizes any of the layer styles and layer opacities. It recognizes the layer blending modes. So here, if I have this overlay texture, it will automatically create that overlay texture in After Effects. And it will recognize these layer masks, and so it will automatically create transparency based on the layer mask. It doesn't hurt to save another copy of your Photoshop document and start rasterizing or applying the layer mask to your layers so that you don't have a bunch of these layer masks confusing you. The other really important thing to note when you're working in Photoshop designing for animation, you need to make sure that any objects, so this is my frame here, but let's say that I wanted the camera to pan down a little bit, you don't want any of your objects to cut off. So right now, these are all cutting off at the end of the frame. So what I would want to do is kind of bring these up and build on to the end of this seaweed. So there is a start and finish. Otherwise, if I start moving this in After Effects, you'll get that straight hard edge, and that's not what we want. So you always want to have more room than just what you see on the screen here. So let's say I go in and build out this piece of seaweed. And to do that really quickly here, I am just going to use, to do that here, I'm just really quickly going to use the clone stamp. So just make this big. This is my source, and I'm just going to start cloning this. Now I can go in with the eraser, and I'm going to put that at about 78. Now I can start erasing this and making it look like it was part of that original. So now if I want to start moving around this seaweed layer, it is going to have some give here at the bottom. So it's really important that you don't have hard edges or anything. Even if I want in the final project here, if I want the fish to be off screen, he needs to have the rest of his body because he eventually, oops, he'll eventually want to move into the frame here. So that's really important when you are designing for animation that everything is built for as much as you would need. Let's say that for my animation, I do want the camera to kind of pan down. And so in that case, I would want to build rocks and all of these things and leave them just off of this main frame, but that way I would still have access to those layers in After Effects. The other important thing to remember when you're working with designing for animation is that if you plan on scaling things, you need to make sure you have those images originally scaled to be very large, because you can always scale down in After Effects, but once you start scaling up a small image, it will get pixelated. So you'll always want to build your objects larger than needed if you do want them to get large on the screen.